Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Axum from Fire Emblems today, and I am joined with a very special guest, SpeedyHawk. Would you please like to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm SpeedyHawk. I am a Fire Emblem YouTuber, do a lot of Iron Man streams, and I used to do Heroes content, but I'm pivoting away from that.
Speedy has some great stuff. I recently watched his Thracia Iron Man, and it was really cool to see. Definitely, the link will be down in the description below. But today we're bringing to you a video about the top 10 villains in Fire Emblem.
Yeah, villains with an asterisk, you know. This should be top 10 antagonists, I think.
That's actually solid. Yeah, that's a solid,
but,
a solid point.
Clickbait. We'll call it villains.
At number 10, we have Valter from Fire Emblem Sacred Stones.
I mean, from Sacred Stones has tons of great villains. That's like one of its strong points.
When I think of your typical characteristic villain, right? Like the guy that's just evil for being evil, Valter's the first one that comes into my mind. Because he's not only just a villain, he's also sadist, right? Like you get that that feeling of sadism coming from him, which is really kind of this unbridled rage. Duasil apparently gave him a lance that's like a cursed lance that actually of his evil tendencies and really magnified them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like looking at his quotes here. He's like, look closely, Erica. Do you not remember the face of he who will master you? And then she's like, what the hell? Yes, resist. It's much more fun that way. Come,
Whoa.
Erica. I should like to tame you. So it's a little uncomfortable.
A little bit? It's
a little, putting it lightly.
Wild to be. And also the fact that we got that in a GBA game. Like, come on, I was, 12 playing this game? No wonder it went over my head.
I love it when games set up a villain, like, right at the beginning so you know who your opposition is, and every time he's on the screen, he's saying horrible things. So Valter's very memorable in that aspect. Okay, so number 9, Mr. Gharnef.
I know you have some very strong opinions about Gharnef.
No, I don't have any strong opinions whatsoever. That's the problem.
In the background, for you guys watching the video right now, it took a lot of me trying to convince to get Gharnef on this list. It's like signing the deal on the house and being like, I'm only going to buy it if Gharnef is there. That was basically what was going on here.
Personally, I think Gharnef's a little bland as a villain, but he is the first, he's the original, and you made a lot of points in his favor that why he should be on this list at number 9.
So my reasoning for Gharnef being on this list and being so adamant was he kills Maloa and creates the Imhulu Tome from the Dark Sphere. He ferments the rebellion to overthrow the Arcaneum royalty. He steals the falchion twice, convinces Michaelis to kill his father and offer his 5-year-old sister as a hostage. He's unkillable in both iterations without Starlight. He has the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which is fantastic. He revives Medius once, and then he revives him in a stronger form a second time, after he's already dead, and he forms a league of assassins made of orphans to kill Marth. Like, how is this guy not making the list, you know?
He has quite the resume. He definitely has done a lot of villainous things. I just, you told me a bit about his backstory. I'm not really super familiar with Arcanea, but can you talk about that?
Basically, Maloa and him were rivals, and Goto chose Maloa as his successor as opposed to Gharnef. And because of that, Gharnef was really upset that he wasn't chosen, and he did all of this to prove that, like, yo, you should have chosen me. Which is ironic, because if I'm Goto, I'm sitting there like, ooh, I'm glad I didn't choose him.
Dodged a bullet, yeah. He has the resume, he has a little bit of a motivation, but he's just not very compelling to me as a villain. So that's why I was super hesitant to put him on this list. Like, he shows up a bunch of times in the campaign. I guess it doesn't explain that he's the driving force behind all the problems.
Yeah, basically, almost everything that has happened in that series has to do in some way or form with something Gharnef did, but it never does a really good job of telling you, by the way, this is because of Gharnef.
Alright, he's number 9, I'm fine with that. I think Valter might be a little more memorable, but Gharnef is the OG. He's got to be on this list.
Gotta have the respect. Respect your elders.
Yeah, exactly.
At number 8, we have Berkut. So you told me that the reason why you chose Berkut, and I kind of am going to agree here, is because Ian Sinclair's performance is just fantastic.
That's like 80% of the reason, yeah.
Yeah. The delivery of every line is so good with this guy.
Berkut, not a great guy. He's part of the Rigel Empire, right? They're kind of the antagonists in the story. But he starts off as just like this prideful, noble guy who's very jealous. But basically, he gives into his desire for power.
It's funny because he always keeps getting beat by Alm. Like that's his thing. Like he thinks he's superior to everybody else, but then he keeps losing to Alm multiple times. When he finally is about to lose to Olm again, he goes and takes the mirror from Nui Baba and he shatters it. He even says it. He's like, I debased myself to try to beat him, and I still couldn't beat him.
Exactly, yeah.
And then
he throws his little tantrum.
Yeah, he throws it. It's so funny because it's legit. This guy he's basically like the salty rage player on Fortnite or something. He's so mad. Towards the end of the story, like you said, he sacrifices Renea. And Renea was the one person that kind of loved him unconditionally. Like, she didn't really care if he was prince or not, which makes it all the more tragic.
You're going to see this on the list a lot, but I like it when villains have like sympathetic parts to them. And seeing Berkut, how he interacted with Renea, like even when they first met, like, may I have this dance, made me appreciate Berkut as a character because you could see a human side to him as well, and how easily that could be corrupted. Okay, coming in at number 7 from Yggdrasil, we have the King of Thracia, Travant. The most heinous thing he does in the story is he hunts down and kills Quan and Ethlin and kidnaps Altena in the Yid Desert. And that's the thing where you're like, wow, this guy is a bastard for doing that. Killed in cold blood in the desert.
To be honest with you, I thought it was really well done because it felt like, wow, I can't do anything to save them. And they
yeah, there's nothing.
And they brought effective weaponry too. Like, they were really prepared. They were ready.
Now, what I like about Travant, kind of see another side to Travant when he's interacting with Arione and Altena. Him being a father figure to them and him having Thracia in his best interests really does enhance his character for me.
I kind of disliked Travant more after I played FE5, and this might be because FE5 kind of retcons some things. In FE5, yes. Well, not just Manfroy, but Veld too. Veld is the one that says that they were the ones that told Travant to go and take advantage of this moment. So FE4 makes it sound like it all fell into his lap and this was the right moment, when in reality, it was more of like everybody was being manipulated by the Loptus Order, you know?
Yeah, but I would say that he obviously felt like it was a good idea and it would align with his goals. So it wasn't just like, okay, I'll obey your orders. It was more like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. This is a power move. I should do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe I'm taking away the credit, but like ultimately he was the one that had to kill them, right?
50-50 credit, yeah.
Yeah, he was like, I showed you where to go. Now you just got to show up. Like, you know?
Yeah. I didn't stress enough about his relationship with Altena. Seeing him like murder Quan and Ethlin so brutally, and then the fact that he raised Altena as his own and still treats her like a daughter.
Well, but to be frank, he kind of does it because he's taking her as a hostage and even says it when he takes her, but...
He used that as a bargaining chip for sure. He used Altena as a bargaining chip, but he still raised her and he still cares for her. I think that's bonus points in the character department.
At number 6, we have one of my personal favorites, Lyon from Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones.
Yes, when I made my list, I didn't even consider Lyon a villain, but he is. He's still a villain, right?
He is definitely a villain. If you look at the Sacred Stones from the perspective of Erika's story, Lyon is actually not the villain. Controlled by the Demon King, like a lot of his actions are basically justified as to possession.
Right.
But it's in Ephraim's route that he is truly, truly a great villain. In Ephraim's route, Lyon basically admits to you that there is no Demon King pulling the strings. Like, he is the Demon King. He used the facade of the Demon King as like an excuse to justify the actions that were happening. But in reality, he's chosen to do this the whole time. So to me, that was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, this is wild.
Quite the shock.
Yeah, it was great. And I also think it's great because it puts the responsibility on his decisions for him to him.
I always thought Lyon was being possessed in both routes, and that the true Lyon shone through in certain moments in both routes. But when you told me that, it made a lot of sense, actually. He wanted Erika as his wife, and he wanted to be stronger than Ephraim. His country was suffering.
He also felt he wasn't going to be a good enough leader, and he didn't want his dad to die, so he was like, yo, let me just make a deal here. But even when Noel starts to explain the backstory, he does talk about how Lyon initially had started by thinking that this was going to save people and help people, but that slowly but surely it started to not corrupt him, but he started to see a different way to do things.
So not literally corrupted by the Demon King, but...
I'm the one that's in control. I'm doing this for the betterment of my people. How could I be wrong? And it's easy to fall into that trap.
He plays such an important role, especially through flashbacks. They explain like his relationship with Erika and Ephraim, and seeing how he's grown from those flashbacks to the current events that are going on in the story. I think they're really well executed. Coming in at number 5, Grima from, I guess, I want to say Awakening. He's the main boss in Awakening, but he does make a cameo in Echoes. The first time I did that extra act in Echoes and learned to, like, got to the bottom of the labyrinth and saw what was going on there, I was like, whoa, this is pretty powerful stuff.
Did you get that they were risen while you were going down, or no? Did you see the similarities?
Yeah, I mean, they have like the tombstones with the texts, like with those little excerpts going on.
When you go down and you're reading those tablets, they basically say that Forneos, who was that guy, mixed the blood of a divine dragon with something else that he had created, right?
Right.
And that creation is Grima. But one of the side effects was that the thanatophages, or whatever, like the little creatures that he had come up with, actually led to the Risen. And that's why you see all those Risen down there. And that's why Grima is able to control and create Risen. It's like it's so obscure lore, though, that you wouldn't know unless you really dived into what was being read and made those connections. Because I didn't know. I remember reading this and being like, wow, this totally makes sense. That's what it is. As far as what he did in his game, Grima succeeded, like straight up. He won and completely destroyed a whole timeline. The only thing he couldn't predict, like Naga sending a person to the past to try to prevent the events. But even then, it didn't fix the timeline that he came from.
There's a cutscene where you see like Grima face off with Lucina, and it's absolutely terrifying. Kills all of the heroes, basically. When they revealed like the second Robin in the story, I was just like, what the hell is going on here? Putting that whole thing together was pretty fun.
There is a point in time that you see Grima falling through the sky in the moment that somebody's coming through, kind of indicating that he caught on to the plan and he also went back in time to try to prevent it from happening there too. There's nothing that hits quite like the end of Awakening, that you use the Grima to destroy the Grima kind of deal.
Basically, Robin has to sacrifice themselves to break the cycle of Grima, or Kron could be selfish and not do it, right? Awakening story gets a lot of flack, but I think it's one of the more enjoyable ones for me.
At number 4, we have Zephiel, the King of Burn from Fire Emblem 6, The Binding Blade.
I didn't consider him on this list because when I think of Zephiel, I'm like, hey, he's kind of boring. But that's only looking at Zephiel from Binding Blade. Knowledge we know from Blazing Blade and Binding Blade, that's when I think he really shines as a character. In
order for you to truly understand Zephiel, you have to kind of practice a little bit of empathy, right? And put yourself in the position that he's in, of trying to constantly be a good son, be a good student, be like a gifted leader, which he is. But then to have a despicable father as Desmond, man. Like, that guy is so scummy. How many assassination attempts on his life? Battle Before Dawn, that's where the first assassination attempt occurs. But I think even after that... At least 2, but there might be more times. Well, even more than one time is already too much. Can you imagine your dad doing that? Yeah. He starts off as this sign of purity and like extremely gifted. His father, being so jealous, wants to destroy him basically. And seeing how humans are so easily corruptible by power, a tragic backstory might not help every character, but seeing what Zephiel goes through in FE7 is where you're like, okay, now I get why he is the way he is. And he almost comes across as, I don't even want to say sadistic, because he's not. It's more like he just cares so little. He cares. Yeah, he's a husk. Yeah, he doesn't care at all. The guy is just an empty shell. When he beats Cecilia, he's like, oh, I thought it was going to be a harder challenge. He literally does not care. Guinevere's his half-sister, right? Showing nothing but unconditional love for her. And she's like really young in FE7, so obviously she loves him back. Go to Binding Blade, you see Guinevere like, I can't get through to him. Completely different. There's nothing I can do to stop him. Roy, you need to help me. That contrast between his childhood and where he is now in Binding Blade is really tragic to see. If you played FE7 first and then went to FE6, I feel like it's just as powerful as playing FE6 first and then playing FE7. Number 3. Arvis, the main antagonistic force of FE4. A lot of people will say, why did we not put Arvis at top 1? The only reason I won't give him number 1 is because he didn't play everybody. Like, he played Sigurd perfectly. He even managed to confirm if Sigurd did know Deirdre or not. Which some people like to say, like, oh, he's not really evil because of that. I'm like, that's low-key a power flex. Like, low-key it is. But
you think so?
Yeah, like, I
think it's a bit ambiguous, but
yeah, ambiguous mind. So it's such a
deniable. Bring out my new wife, Deirdre.
It's like, come on, guys, stop being apologists. Like, the dude is a villain, like, straight up. There's no ambiguity here. He totally knew, but The one thing he failed to see, though, was that Manfroy was pulling the strings all along, to the point that he actually got pushed out by his son because he couldn't predict that.
He has like a redemption moment in the second generation. That's why I put him on the list, at least. I think I'm too much of a guy who likes sympathetic characters. Now, Arvis starts off in the game as kind of like a neutral party, I would say, to Sigurd. He offers him the silver sword. He plays, let's just say it's like politics. My friend Linking, I don't know if you're familiar with his videos, but he's like the #1 Arvis apologist and defender. But he put Arvis in a light where Sigurd was committing war crime after war crime that Arvis had to do what he had to do.
Well, that's a hot take, man. I'm not gonna. That's a hot take.
Can you? I mean, how many countries did Sigurd conquer? Like by accident? He had to sentence him to death in accordance with the law. He just happened to steal his girl because he just meets Deirdre right after she was kidnapped by the Lopter.
Okay, so here's the biggest argument. If he didn't think that she was involved with Sigurd at all, why even show her to him?
Well, because they're married. He's like, hey, come out here, my beautiful wife.
So right before I'm gonna roast your ass, I'm gonna show you my wife. Like, what's the point of that? It's like, honestly, oh, honey, appreciate the barbecue. Like, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
I'm just gonna chalk it up to Kaga being like, you know what would really get the player pissed off if Deirdre like showed up as Arvis's wife right now. What I like about Arvis, like I said, his redemption in Gen 2 when he realized that Julius is too far gone and he might have resurrected the Dark God. He gives the Tearfang some guy. He's like, here, give this to Seliph. Like, go. This is how I could make this right, like in my dying wish. And then he still dies.
One of the moments that I think really defines Arvis is actually shown in game. It's the chapter right before the Battle of Valhalla, in which he basically has a bunch of green units all over the field, and they turn on the enemies, destroy the army that you were up against. And it was like such a bamboozle that even the enemies didn't know this was coming. For once, reinforcements that spawned on the same turn killed them.
I love moments like that. There's so many actors in Yggdrasil that it feels like the world is alive. So it's like, oh yeah, like there could be more opposition forces. It's not just like the world against us.
And that is why Arvis is at our #3, for being such a impactful villain onto the story and his impact in Yggdrasil's saga.
And barbecue memes.
Initially, I hadn't even considered the #2. Given the amount of impact this character has had across the whole series, I have to agree that there is no better place for this character to be than #2, the Black Knight.
When you're first introduced to the Black Knight, he executes like the strongest character, Ike's father, Grail, right in front of his eyes, in one strike. Like, I don't care about Ashnard at this point. Black Knight is the villain of this game. His music is incredible. He has like such an iconic theme. Anytime his theme comes on, dastardly energy in the background. You face off with him one-on-one, or maybe two-on-one if you train Mist. That's one of the most iconic moments in the game where Ike faces off with the Black Knight. You think he's dead in Path of Radiance. Turns out he's alive because he has plot armor, but in Radiant Dawn, you actually get to control this guy. Virtually impossible to kill when you're in control of him, unless you cheat. In terms of how he's introduced in the story of Path of Radiance, the developers used him in gameplay. Like, there's a certain chapter in Path of Radiance where he busts out of a house in the center of a map. Anyone within vicinity of that house is dead meat.
One of the things that you told me that also I hadn't recognized at the time, but like everybody knows who the Black Knight is. And I'm not talking about Ares. Like, I'm talking about this guy, right? Because an iconic force, just destructive. When you think of the Black Knight, you think like the best swordsman in the land. Like, yeah, he had weapon triangle advantage against Grail, but like it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, like the guy was just busted from the start, in the get-go. When you finally find out who the Black Knight is, I almost kind of think that it makes it better. To think that he played both teams is amazing to me. Because he was not only the mightiest general in Dane, he was also the mightiest general in Benyon.
Okay, they did the twist badly because one of the characters just like, oh, by the way, you know this guy's the Black Knight.
Yeah, that was always like, come on, Randolph. But I will say that it's a little more realistic if you think about it, because so many people have fought this dude at this point. You're gonna tell me that none of them figured it out?
Yeah, definitely. But when I found the twist out, I was like shocked. I was like, wait, that's him? Like, oh my god. Like, my friends who don't even play Fire Emblem know who he is because of Smash Bros. They're like, oh, that's the Black Knight. Like, he's the villain.
The one thing that stopped me from putting him at 1, his motivations aren't really his. All of the plot of Radiant Dawn and all of the effort done should go to Sephiroth. Like, and if somebody has to take number 1 in that case, it would have to be Sephiroth and not the Black Knight. But don't worry, Sephiroth is not the number 1 on this list.
Zelgius kind of blindly follows Sephiroth because Sephiroth kind of offers him warmth, I guess, and that's what makes Zelgius follow Sephiroth's every demand and wish. So honorable mentions, starting off with Jared from Radiant Dawn. Jared is like the first general you fight. You know, he's not the most memorable villain, but he's just so relatable and funny that I think he has to be on this honorable mention list. Also, the Black Fang, the whole organization. I don't think I have to go into depth because I think most people know about the Black Fang, but they can't not be on this list, I would say.
Also on the list is Ashnard from Path of Radiance. His ideology is great, his setup is good. The only problem is that he's too one-dimensional, so we didn't put him anywhere up higher, but he's an honorable mention. And last but not least, we have Nurgle. The real problem I have with Nurgle is that he is too incompetent as a villain sometimes. He lets people get away with stuff, and he shouldn't have.
So number 1, are you ready to get a bunch of dislikes on your video? Is the one and only Edelgard from Three Houses. Listen, I know what you're all thinking. Edelgard is not really a villain, right? But I think her contention for the role of villain in this game story is what makes her so compelling.
Ultimately, the reason why I think we picked Edelgard is that the discourse alone provided by the question, is Edelgard a villain or not, is enough to rank her in number 1 of this scenario. Others will point out the fact that her actions taken are completely not in line with what she's trying to accomplish. It's like using the stones to destroy the stones in a way. One thing is undeniable, right? Edelgard is actually the driving force narrative of any route that you play. The decisions that Edelgard made are the ones that are pushing the story forward. So as a villain or as a hero or however you want to paint her, her motivations and the way she goes through that, like the strength that she carries while she's doing that, set her up to be a fantastic villain.
So Edelgard's childhood was tragic. She was experimented on because of, Crest's research and development, basically. And she sees all these injustices in Fodlan that she realizes that crests are the source of everyone's problems. And if she got rid of crests, life would be a much better place. So Edelgard wants to basically take a bulldozer to the power structure of Fodlan and rebuild it from the ground up. She doesn't care what's in her path. As long as she achieves that goal, she's happy. She's one of the ends justifies the means types of characters, I would say.
What you're seeing from the perspective of the player is just like an invading force, a conquering force that's trying to do good, but it's not doing good by the people that it's conquering. That's just how expansionism occurs across the series. Not saying that she's trying to be expansionist, but ultimately her goal is to unify Fodlan. Pretty in the name there. The reason why she probably is considered the best villain on our list too is precisely because of the fact that she can garnish the sympathy of so many people and create such a drive to better her world from her perspective. So this isn't just something that we see occur in the game. Like, this almost translates to a meta form in which like people are having discussions in the Fire Emblem community of like, is Edelgard right? Is Edelgard wrong? And all of that is just a transference of the fact of how well written the character is, to the point that it can actually convey that feeling from that story and narrative and project it onto the players, which is, honestly, if that's not material for number 1, I don't know what is.
And I think that's why she's so contentious, because look, whenever you're discussing Edelgard, it feels like you're talking about politics. Like, that's what it boils down to for me.
I want to thank everyone for watching. I really do appreciate it. SpeedyHawk, thank you so much for coming on board today. Down in my description, I'm going to have a link for his channel, so you guys definitely should check it out. Do you want to say some parting words?
Oh yeah, thank you for having me on, Axum. It was a lot of fun. Feel strongly about this stuff. I'm just not the best at improvising what to say on the spot.
No, man, you did great by my book. I had a blast.
Okay, good,
I definitely think we should do this again, maybe with some different, more uplifting topics. Like, who are the best growth units in Fire Emblem? That'd be a good top 10.
That's something I could talk passionately about.
Oh, okay. Well, it's scheduled then. We'll have it happen. Please leave down in the comments below, what do you think? Do you think that we're right? Do you think we're wrong? Do you think that the top 10 should have been other people? Please, we'd love to see that. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you guys.
Bye.